All right, let's get right into it. We all spend our days talking at work, right? In meetings, on calls, over email. But here's the thing. There's a massive difference between just talking and actually communicating strategically. And that difference, it's not just a minor detail. It's pretty much the invisible force that can either stall your career out or, well, put it on the fast track.
This quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. You can be the hardest worker in the room, constantly communicating, but if it's not done with intention, you might as well be invisible. Your biggest contributions, your best ideas, they just get lost in all the noise. And honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons so many careers just plateau.
So let's break this down a bit. Look at these two columns. On the left, you've got activity. This is things like just talking, reporting on tasks you finished, basically being busy. It's all about output. But on the right, that's impact. That's communicating, showing results, and being truly effective. That's about outcomes. The real career growth happens when you shift from the left column to the right.
Now, this might be a tough pill to swallow, but it's a fundamental truth of most companies. All your hard work, the long hours you put in, that's your effort. But the system, it doesn't really reward effort directly. What it rewards is the perception of your contribution. And guess what almost single-handedly shapes that perception? Yep, the way you communicate.
So why is there such a huge disconnect for so many people? It's because big organizations basically operate on what this is calling a signal system. Your message isn't getting through because you might be sending weak signals, or worse, your signal is just getting drowned out by all the surrounding noise.
And here's what that really means. Your leaders are constantly trying to gauge the clarity of your contribution. They just don't have the time to track every little thing you do. So your ability to communicate your value clearly and concisely becomes the signal that tells them you're making an impact. Everything else, it's just noise. Think about it like this. Leaders are looking at you through a few very specific filters. They're constantly asking themselves questions like, is this person's impact clear to me? Do I get how their work helps other teams? Are they building trust with the people who matter? And maybe the biggest one of all, are they aligned with where we're trying to go as a company?
Okay, so we've laid out the problem. We know the system we're working in. So what do we do about it? How do we fix it? Well, we have to get deliberate. And that's where a structured solution called the Corporate Signal Architecture Model, or CSAM for short, comes in. It's a framework built specifically to help you send the right signals.
And you know, I absolutely love that word, architecture. It's perfect because this isn't about being naturally charismatic or just winging it. It's about intentionally designing and constructing your communication to achieve a specific goal.
This whole framework is built on 4 key pillars. First up, signal precision. This is all about turning your effort into actual, measurable results. Second is context intelligence, making sure your message connects with what the organization cares about, not just what's on your to-do list. Third, we have influence mapping. This one's crucial. It's about knowing who interprets your signal, not just who's listening. And finally, feedback integration. Because this is a cycle. You have to constantly refine your approach based on what's working and what's not. And this quote, it just perfectly sums up that first pillar, signal precision. Think about it. When you can state your impact clearly and concisely, you project confidence. Long, rambling emails and updates, they often come from a place of fear, the fear that your work can't stand on its own without a ton of justification.
Okay, let's make this super practical. I want you to picture 2 production managers. They both work at the same sourcing office. Both are great at their jobs. Both are hitting their targets. But because of how they communicate, their careers are about to head in completely different directions.
So Manager A reports what happened. We completed orders on time. Okay, that's fine. It's a fact, but it's purely operational. Now look at Manager B, who communicates the impact. Lead time reduced by 8%, vendor variance stabilized, and cross-team dependency risk decreased. You feel the difference, right? Manager B isn't just talking about tasks. They're speaking the language of business strategy.
And here's the kicker. Both managers did the same great work. But only Manager B was able to translate that performance into a strategic signal that leadership could immediately recognize and value. And over months, over years, that tiny difference in communication creates a huge gap. It affects everything, promotions, projects, and even pay. The perception of them completely diverges.
So, the big question is, how do you make sure your Manager B, you've got to start seeing your communication as more than just talking. You have to treat it like a form of engineering. You are literally engineering alignment between the work you do and the goals of the organization.
So here are the key principles, your action plan.
First, translate your effort into numbers and results. Always align what you're saying with the big picture business priorities. Think about your audience. What do they need to hear, not just what do you want to tell them? Use data whenever you can to make your point undeniable. And please never forget that final point. You're not just communicating, you're engineering alignment.
And that really brings us to the final, critical question you've got to ask yourself. Think about your last team update, your last presentation, your last important email. Were you just speaking, just reporting on activities, or were you strategically, purposefully communicating your impact? Because the answer to that question could very well determine the entire future of your career.